Overlooked gems that are yours for the taking. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and slow down once in a while, you might miss it. Remember that from Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here, and thanks a lot for hanging out with me on the channel today. You know, when we started looking at all the Wizards of the Coast products that they've put out in the last 24 months, it is just a massive amount. And a lot of the LGSs, the stores, the secondary market cannot handle the excessive amount. Things get forgotten, left behind, so many new cards getting pumped into the system at this point that there are a lot of hidden gems. There is a lot of value in cards that people aren't looking at right now. Eventually people stop and they take a breath. And they build a new deck and they put something together. And they look back and they realize that some of these cards went up in value. Some cards are still underrated and they grab them while they can. And that's when you start looking at those sealed boxes to see which ones are actually going to hold future value and which ones are going to be desirable. Which ones are people going to want to get their hands on. And there's a lot of factors that can come into play when you're looking at the sealed market. There'll be players out there who actually just want to crack it and have a good time. Other people realize that some of these cards are going to be short run. They'll be harder to come across, or they just didn't sell well at the time and didn't get second and third print runs. It happens all the time nowadays. Let's get real. It's the world we live in. We know that LGSs are not holding on to massive amounts of sealed product. Whatever they order, they hold on to. When their stock starts to get low and if something's out of print, they start slowly raising the prices as the sales start happening. That's why LGSs don't have tons of stuff in the back room. As things are rising in price, they're being cleaned out box by box, case by case, until there's nothing left. That's why you don't start seeing older boxes hanging around LGSs anymore. The secondary market eventually absorbs these. Some for opening, some for holding on to and flipping at a later date when some of these cards become even more valuable. And that's especially true when you look at the reserve list. So on today's video, I want to share with you guys some of the cards I think make some of these boxes unique and some of the future values that can be found in these boxes for various reasons. So let's go through. We'll have some fun with this. I can't wait to see the comments in the comments section afterwards, but we're going to start things off. So the first one we're talking about today is going to be Zendikar Rising. This can be found locally here in Canada for $129.95 Canadian, okay? When you look at that box and you start breaking down some of the contents, remember, it has a good name. The adventure thing, the whole, I realize the party mechanic didn't work out that well, but there's a lot of cards in here that are retaining value, being used in other formats. And when you start looking at the set, you realize this is probably going to be a keeper. It's going to be something that people are going to remember for a very long time. That gives it a few points up in my books on what people will think about in the future and if they want to buy a box of it. Is this something they're going to buy for $250 5-6 years from now? I'm probably thinking they're going to do it, which is the rule of double. Now, when you take away that box and you start looking at the cards held within, you can see we're talking Seagate Restoration. Not a bad card. It's great to be able to draw cards or put a land into play. And having an infinite hand size, as an early game, you need a land. You can lay this out. You got your land. Later on, being desperate to draw cards and get something going, you can see why this would be added to a commander deck. What a great utility card to have. When you look at other cards like the Awakening, right? Again, I saw this a lot during its rotation when it was inside things like Arena. I remember playing against it many times and people bringing all kinds of big baddies out against me from the graveyard. It's a good card. It's decent. It's going to have playability. Cards like this are going to go in my Throw Bowl deck because it lets me bring all kinds of little nasty guys back to play. I love this stuff. But let's face it. The be-all, end-all, it's got to be the fact we had box topper cards. Yeah, you could get something like a Spiral Garden, but at the same time, you could get that Polluted Delta. You could get some of the amazing cards that Zendikar is known for having, which is fetch lands. That box topper is going to be that game-winning anomaly that people are willing to gamble on. So when somebody says you're going to pay $250 a box, yes, they are. Because a card like that already holds $70, $80 in value. And I didn't even go into the fact we got Omnath and other cards of good utility within the set. I'm just picking the point that some of the cards in here are going to have value. It's going to have the right feel for players, and they're going to want to play with it. They're going to want to have that experience again later on. I made sure I bought 2 cases at the time, and I'm glad I held on to them. They were a little bit cheaper at the time when I bought them, but the price right now is still probably underrated, but everyone's money is tied up elsewhere. The hidden gems we have in this set are what people are missing out on. Now our next box is going to be Crimson Vow. This locally right now is $109.95 a box. That means a case is going to run you about $700 Canadian. This is bargain basement. There are decent cards held within this set that people aren't realizing, not to mention still Innistrad, which has an amazing strong name attached to it. Just because this set didn't go off the way people wanted it to, doesn't mean there's not value and good cards in the set, and doesn't mean that these won't have playability later or a fun draft experience for the future. When we start taking a look at some of the cards held within this set, when you start breaking things out and you realize some of these cards are not horrible, right? The Cultivator Colossus is $25 Canadian. I get it. He's not like the biggest, baddest beastie out there, but he does have combinations. He does have uses. I saw it used a few times myself inside of Arena. I mean, I can see why people want to play with cards like this. It's going to be a good time for everybody. And when you start breaking out cards like, the Toxic Corrosive Slug Slime, I get it. This guy has killed me more times than I can count with some of my little mini decks I was building. Can be a real problem, real showstopper when you're not prepared. And cards like that still hold 20 something bucks value. When you're getting a bargain basement price on the box, then the contents really become, not worth as much as you think because the value is already going to be there because you're saving money on the box. Chandra, Dress to Kill, $26 still. If you get a couple of those cards in your box, it pays for more than half the box already. And don't forget, there's all kinds of other rare cards in the set going for $4, $5, $6 each that people haven't even properly explored. As more decks get built, more vampire tribal stuff comes out, we're looking at a whole different way of looking at some of these cards. People just haven't recognized it yet. And that's nobody's fault. I love that. Because that gives these hidden gems that opportunity for some other players to get in there and grab them. Maybe they're not right for you. That's totally legitimate. But for some of the people out there who say, I can take a risk on that, even if it goes to zero, I get to enjoy some great boxes, that I understand. Because I do that all the time. When it comes to boxes like this, guys, I'm willing to spend some money, and if it goes to zero, it's okay. I still get a great card set out of it. I get to have an experience for years to come, and great memories of having pre-releases and matches with friends. So I'm always good with that stuff. Now, the next box we're talking about, Jumpstart. Locally, this is $124.95 Canadian. It's cheap. And this took a long time to get back to print. There was all kinds of issues with the print runs. There wasn't enough put in stock. Take two decks, slap them together, and you can just go ahead and play. A lot of fun for a lot of players. Although myself, I don't own any boxes of this. This was not a product I was diving into. But when you start looking at some of the cards and you realize the Allosaurus Shepherd's like $70 still, Canadian, that's a lot of money. I know we got reprinted right now, but you're still talking a lot of money. Double Masters may have taken a bit of the fire out of him, but I think you're still going to see a lot of retention value going forward, and he's still going to command that higher price as the market absorbs copies, because we didn't get a lot of it inside of Jumpstart. At $124, really, when you start looking at some of the other cards held within the set, we're talking, I can't pronounce that, the Grand, yeah, you guys know how my pronunciation is, but it's still almost a $40 card Canadian. There's value here in these cards. And if you get just a couple of these, not to mention there's all kinds of lower end like Craterhoof Behemoth, really? We have value here. We have cards people have overlooked or are ignoring right now. Take your pick. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. For $124.95, again, a box of 6, and we're talking about $150 there with taxes, Canadian. Wow, it's like not that much money, is it? $900, but you're going to get 6 boxes of it? You're telling me none of that stuff's going to retain value or hold it? I'm sorry. I see value, and I see the temptation to get some of these cards and get it while the getting's good. Because these prices aren't going to hold. They are going to go up, and that's why I'm calling them hidden gems, little diamonds in the rough, little treasures, because it's just, there's so much there. Now, when we're talking Midnight Hunt, I know, panned everywhere. It wasn't good. The werewolf sucked. Everything was horrible. But did it? Are people actually looking at some of this stuff? Because I think some people are missing some of what was going on in this set. When you start looking at cards like Lair, right? The Drowned, he's still used all the time. He may only be a $14 card, but that's definitely more than a $10 bill. It has some value. Things that can't be counted are always good. When you look at some of the lands in this set, like Haunted Ridge, this is an expensive land. I had to get one myself so I could have it for my commander deck. Like, it's an $18 card. The full art borderless versions are like 30 bucks. Depending on the version you're buying or the box you're after, including these collector boxes, guys, they're all underpriced collector boxes too. All of these have value. They all are going to retain something going forward. And if you ask yourself, for a few bucks, is it going to be worth it? I say yes. A lot of these are going to be, and they're being ignored. People are not thinking about it, and that's crazy. When we take a look, the Meat Hook Massacre, remember in double feature, there's even a more expensive version, right? It was very hard to get. When you see the Meat Hook Massacre there, which people talked about for a hot minute, that's still out there. It's still in rotation. It's still being played. When people actually take time to start building and playing decks, cards like that are going to be used. They're going to be bought. And there's not much anybody can do about it because it didn't get opened as much as people had hoped it would. It did have a hot minute where boxes got opened everywhere and everyone was like, look, I got the Meat Hook Massacre. I remember seeing the email and the texts and the Discord messages. But now, silence. A pin drops. Everyone's moved on. Now the last one. Last one I want to share with you guys today because we got to keep this video at a reasonable amount. Nuka Panda. Now, draft box. $34.95. Sorry, I said 34. I meant to say $134.95. When you look at that box, does that seem very expensive? Because normal boxes are $144. Why is this one a little bit cheaper? Because they got to move it. They got to get the product out the door. They got to make room. So cards like this, I'm not even saying buy this one yet. Wait till Christmas. See if it goes for $119. See if you can save a few bucks. And don't forget, Streets of Nuka Panda has got some great cards in it, right? You got the extra sets of Triumphs, which totally went from like the 20-something dollar mark down to like 10, 12 bucks Canadian. A lot of them are sold out. I admit that. If you look around, they're sold out. Because again, a lot of people aren't opening the product, which means the price will eventually go back up when people do start to look for these lands. Are we going to be the ones to take advantage of it? Are we going to be the ones who corner the market and take a few of these extra? Maybe some extra trade value for cards you want later on? Because that's the stuff I tend to do when products like this go amiss, go awry, and they're a little bit twisted. All right, the Bootlegger Stash. I remember this one very well. Played against it a few times, and then I hear nothing. But it's still a $22 card. It's still out there, and people just aren't paying attention. The price came down so much. And then when you take a look at that last card, you say, hey, Ob Nixilis was like 30-something dollars. It's like half that price right now and still falling, by the way. This is still going down. It's not staying where it is. Okay? He's an amazing card. He has a lot of utility with that causality effect. Doubling him over and stuff can just be brutal. But people aren't paying attention. They're, money's tied up. Things are other worlds. When you take a look at all those products, you're telling me how long will it take for those to double up? And by doubling, I like to go with double the price it was at when I bought it. So if a box is $109, I got to sell it for around what, $230? Because you got some fees and taxes and stuff, right? $230. Are you telling me those boxes aren't going to go $230? $250, $270? They're not going to reach those levels? Because a lot of the boxes in the background here beg to differ. Yes, you got to wait. Yeah, you got to sit on product. I get it. But so few people apparently are doing it. Like the stores aren't doing it. So it's only the secondary market players like us who actually hold on to this stuff to sell to each other later on. So when people say it's being sold to players, to other players, yes, that's true. It is true. We do sell to each other. Mike Banks, sorry guys. When you are selling to another player, you could be a person who holds, I don't know, a box of Rise of the Eldrazi. And some guy wants to bust a box with some friends and have a good experience. They say, I'll pay you like, the $1,500. That's still me selling to another player. It's not going to a store. It's not going to Channel Fireball or any of the big boys. It's going to another player. Okay? That is selling to another player because they can't get it from an LGS. They have to get it from other players out there who are reliable sources. Don't go sketchy people, but reliable sources to get those products. It happens all the time. I've had people buy boxes from me. Some of you on the channel already have in the past. But these are hidden because people know about it, but they think it's always going to be there, and it's not. They'll dry up. They get used up slowly over time. A few boxes here, a few boxes there. Little things get eaten away. I love the fact people forget about this stuff. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. You guys let me know what you think of all these. They're going to be hits, they're going to be misses, but ask yourself honestly, if you're a person who ever wants to buy this stuff, buying it now is probably better than trying to buy it a year from now. because the box prices may hold, they may stay right where they are. But at the same time, they may not. And they may start to climb up again. One never knows what the market's going to do. At the worst case scenario, you can wait till Christmas and see if things go on sale locally. See if there's some fire sales as stores try to push out product for the end of the year. That's probably the best bet if you think things are going to go that way. If you think they're going to go up, then the best time to buy is now. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me on the channel. Oh, so many good things out there. So little money, but so many good cards. Have a great day, everyone, wherever you are in the world of Magic. And of course, a big shout out to all the fantastic patrons on the channel who make videos like this. They happen because patrons support me. Thank you again, guys, for that continued support. Patrons make the world go round. Well, welcome back, special people. Can you imagine the day when it's like 2026, 2027, maybe even 2028? When a box like this goes from 109 to 250, you really don't, for people who don't think it'll reach 250, you really don't think it'll get there? I think time will be my ally on this one. We're going to laugh at this. We're going to look back and say, do you remember when? Do you remember we had nachos and cheese? We sat around with a guy who never graduated Magic University. And he told us that these boxes would be worth more than $109. Because I kind of remember that. It's weird. 109. 109. Really? Those boxes are going to stay cheap? Zendikar Rising is really going to stay around the 130, 150 mark? I don't know. I don't think so. I just don't think so.